going to be talking about AAA, sorry, open world. So what an open world is a giant area, giant map or something. Well, it doesn't always have to be giant, like the size can vary, but it's just a big open space like a playground or a sandbox as they usually refer to it as, where you can go almost everywhere on the given X and Y axis, right? And usually, this is restricted to AAA titles only. This genre is practically the only genre which is limited to only AAA games, which is a part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this today, because I've been playing a lot of indie games. And, with the AAA industry being so shit, I wanted to look into the one aspect, the one thing that they can do that indie games can't do. And that is this genre, because any time that true indie games have done it, they just haven't met all of the requirements that make a good, interesting, engaging, and interactive world for you to immerse yourself within. The thing is, a lot of places that I've looked into, like YouTube feeds and Facebook, and a lot of people, like I remember when Fallout 4 came out, and like one of the first things that people commented on was like they ran in a straight line from one corner of the map to the other, right? And they just looked at how long it took to get there. They didn't look at anything else. Not a single fucking thing. And I was like, this isn't even a quarter of how long it took me to do the same for Skyrim. And they had judged from that alone, that factor, that somehow that counts to quality and how much time you would spend on, like how much content is actually within the map. How they amassed to this, I don't understand. I don't know. So that's what we're going to be talking about. What are your thoughts before I proceed?
Yeah, it's one of the quantity over quality arguments, and it's just like if your map's too huge, a lot of people can be super daunted by that prospect alone. There's just so much to explore, and it's like, where
Exactly.
do I start?
Yeah,
Where do I go?
I agree. Like when you first opened up to something, like for instance, when I talked about Halo and how it changed from older games like Doom that were the first in the genre, or even newer, slightly newer games like Half-Life and Serious Sam, which are newer games that people might be familiar with, where you have all of the guns. You're just overwhelmed by all these things that you have straight out of the bat, so you'll never really use some of them because there's no reason to use the shotgun or the flamethrower in Serious Sam, for instance, when you just got the chain gun. Everyone's just going to stick to that. They're not going to try the Tommy gun because it's the exact same thing, uses the same ammo, but it's slightly weaker, so people are obviously going to choose a stronger variant, saving the players from themselves,
Yeah,
all that
exactly.
shit. So people aren't going to explore all your content if you give it to them straight out the bat. So that delves into another point of how GTA 4 handled this, where they restricted certain parts of the map so that you would spend like and built the story around what you could use in that part of the map. Like they had the three islands in Liberty City, right? Which they obviously edited as not a accurate representation of the actual city itself, but in GTA 4 they gave you certain parts of the map. There was only the one island when you started off. You had to progress the story far enough, which would take you all around the map, so you'll get used to it and memorize it and so forth before you go into the other parts of the map and familiarize yourself with those. Which, as the story would go on, you would explore each one, which was restricted in the story kind of lazily by terrorism, but the fact remains that it still gets people to explore your content, which is a lot better way to do it than do a collectibles. But then again, some people would complain like, why don't I get access to everything straight out the bat, which does have another discussion on this, brings up another point. So,
Yeah, but it's like, well, most games don't give you access to everything straight out like off the bat. It's not really like a real problem unless you make it a problem. And it's like, yeah, you can't really just give everyone everything because, like you said, it can be daunting and people can just ignore content, especially with games such as like um Breath of the Wild, the Zelda game. Like you can literally walk straight up to the end of the game up to the end boss and finish the game. Like you don't even have to like do most of it. It's just to help
Yeah.
you like
Yeah, it's a lot
make
like
the game
Chrono
easier.
Trigger, how you talk about that, which gets onto the point of restricting the map, where like Dark Souls does a similar thing. I know both Chrono Trigger and Dark Souls don't count as open worlds, but this does factor into how you could address these sort of issues of restricting certain things. So it was saying like in Chrono Trigger you immediately get to the final boss, like you can go straight to them. No, nothing else in the story at all has to be done, and then you can just go straight there, fight them, and as long as you're good enough, you can kill them and end the game. So your play
Yeah,
time could be within an hour. So that could be good for people who want to do speed runs or whatever. But the thing is, you're gonna want to appeal to the mainstream crowd first. Like they talked with game design on why everyone may ask, I saw this at E3 and I encountered this within the first hour of play. What's up with that? The most interesting points of games are crammed into the beginning because they want to um, interest you the most near the beginning of the game so that you play for longer, that you experience more of the story, that you're more interested in the actual content. And with Dark Souls, they do something where they put up certain things, like there's certain bosses you have to beat to trigger certain like bells or whatever to access certain parts of the map again. Um, and that all are prerequisites to beating the final boss. But you can't just go straight to the final boss. You have to get those prerequisites, which means that you have to explore those points of the map, right? And that's the most important thing, is making sure that players, on average, explore a certain amount of the content, because you don't want to make content that no one's going to use or see or any of that shit. It's just a
yeah,
waste of time, a waste of assets there. So evening it out is important as well. There's also another thing which I watched a documentary on the designing of what is it, The Witcher 3, and how they made it an open world game. They also they wanted to make it open world since the beginning, and they brought up a thing of this thing they call the rule of 30, which means every 30 seconds where you're running in a straight line, you'll encounter something interesting. Because as you see on my screen, all I've been doing is running in a straight line for like almost 10 minutes now, which now I've got proof I'm not fucking, well then again I only started about 7 minutes, didn't I? Alright, so I'd only be like 5 minutes or so that I've been running in a straight line, but like I've come across one house pretty much, there's nothing here, so I'm not interested. I'm very bored by this map. There's no point for me running in a straight line. There's no level or map design involved with this. But what should happen if you want to make a good map is every 30 seconds you'll come across a POI, which is point of interest, or a POE, point of encounter, which point of interest means, oh look, there's a town, there's a water tower there, oh my god, every 30 seconds. Otherwise people are going to be bored. They're going to be wondering, why did they build this space? Why does this space exist? What's the point of expanding the map this big, GTA 5, 80% of the map is just fucking dust, right? And point of encounter means like, okay, I come here, I see like maybe a wild wolf or a gang that are having a shootout with some cops or something like that. Something that makes this area relevant, that makes it worthwhile exploring this area and going here. You need that every 30 seconds for your map to be worthwhile. And I quite strongly
yeah,
believe that. A lot of open world games nowadays seem to ignore that. It makes me wonder, what's the point in making this so big? It's just a waste of my time. I'm just running around to see nothing and do nothing. There's no point to it. Like Fortnite listens to that. They make a map that's really small, and with this game where you're just constantly running and you have to get in a circle, it only just makes the situation worse. I mean, sure, there's vehicles which speed up your travel, but there is also in The Witcher, and like you got to apply that rule of 30 still, both to, for, and on vehicle. It's not just one or the other, which is a lot harder for balancing and so forth, because one goes really fast, one doesn't, but it still needs to be applied the same. And this game,
yep,
it really only focuses on as if you were traveling by car with a rule of 30, and it's painful because it's RNG, the vehicle, so you're very unlikely to even get it. Um, what are your thoughts on that? The rule of 30.
Yeah, I agree. In open world games, especially, it's super important. But in games like this one per se, it's not as important. Like, yeah, it should still happen. Maybe not to quite to 30 seconds, but it should still be like, yeah, there's something to do, something to see every few seconds because, like you
30
said, otherwise
seconds
it
is
gets
quite a thing.
boring.
Wow, yeah. Because no one wants to run in 5 minutes in a straight line and encounter not a single thing, right? But
Yeah,
another thing
exactly.
is reusing assets all
Exactly,
over the
but
map. Yeah, go on.
because this is an online game, you're supposed to be able to see people fairly often and randomly encounter them. So it's supposed to be balanced that way. It's not because people generally hang out
That's
in
another problem is
like
because the
more
map's so
populated
big,
areas.
it's a lot less likely that you'll just encounter them in random spots like Fortnite, which is another problem, but go on.
Exactly. Exactly, but it's supposed to be more balanced because it is an online game. They don't think they need as much in a map, especially when it's so large. But like you just said, it's too large for an online game because it's unlikely that you're gonna run into someone. But I guess they're trying to compensate with that whole the map shrinks thing. But again, like that doesn't really mean that you can't have something to encounter or something to see every few seconds. But yeah, in open world games especially, because you have such a huge map, like otherwise people are just going to be bored because they can run for half an hour and not see anything if they don't go the right ways. And it's like that's not all right. Like that can't be what you do.
As well with world design, it needs to make sense that all things are here. Like says for
Exactly.
one reason or another why you encounter X in Y location, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's uh Xenoblade. Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It's it makes sense to an extent, but then randomly, out of nowhere, you'll see enemies that are way higher scale than anyone else. Like literally, one of the first levels you do, everyone's like level like 10 or 12 or something that you can fight. There are like most of them are like level 6 and stuff. And then you turn a corner and there's a level like 80 just standing there randomly in the middle of the field. And it's like, sure, that brings more to the universe, but it also kind of breaks the whole story.
Yeah, because
And
it
it's
needs
like,
level design
it's,
as well, which that is
yeah,
fucked up level
exactly.
design.
Yeah,
Final
but
Fantasy
it's
15 has the
supposed to,
same situation, like
it's
from the
supposed
beginning
to,
of the level.
like, show you that everywhere will have, like, a good enemy to face, but they should, like, they should have prerequisites for,
Artistically, the spot that you're in, like
oh
the
shit,
map,
I'm
like
outside
maybe
the
you have to
area.
go off the beaten path, from where the game is directing you. Like you have to go down a lower, darker
Yeah,
hill, for instance, down into a swamp that's like very dark and ominous. That kind of that would give off the feel to someone that like maybe I shouldn't enter here. But when you do, when you explore,
yeah,
you encounter
exactly.
that enemy, and then you're like, okay, maybe you'll just mentally document this, explore later. But you know, with that, yeah, it's fucked up level design that you can just encounter those things straight away. They have that in Final Fantasy 15 as well, that problem. But another point that I want to get
Yeah,
onto is side quests, where for instance, GTA 5 generally does this the best, open world games, and there's a reason, because they know how to do stuff like balance, making you evenly go from main story to side quest. You know, like you're not either doing all side quests or all main story, like most people will do. Again, trying to save the players from themselves with game design, the common thought process, right? And with GTA, they for instance, they'll give you a quest where maybe you've got to drive with this dude, and then when you end it, they'll be all like, you'll get a notification saying like, oh, here's a race. You can do races now. Just talk to this person, and oh, surprisingly, you had to turn in your mission just near a race point. I don't know. You could just go check it out, see what you think. You know. So they link up the world and where each mission is to one another. Again, going both world design and level design, which are two different things, but they can coincide, and the chemistry between the two being good like that, it just really well makes people just explore everything so evenly that they're not sick of doing any one thing at any given time. You know, they're always exploring new
Yeah, yeah,
content
exactly.
and new parts of the map.
And
It's
that's exactly how level design should be. And it's annoying when they don't like even try to do that. And it's like just explore the whole game. And it's like open world, so you know there's heaps of things to do, but none of it's connected. One of the biggest games that has a problem with that is the Mass Effect series. They give you lots and lots of side missions, and they're all great missions. Like they all have their own side story and stuff. They're perfectly fine on their own, but almost none of them connect to the main story.
exactly.
Like you can stretch it and connect it, but like aside from the first couple missions, it doesn't really connect, and the whole story can like, ah shit, and the whole story can be like taken completely without most of those side missions, and just you can ignore them, and it won't
Exactly.
do anything
Because
bad for your game.
people will see this like you going on. People will see that sort of stuff and they'll be like, where do I start? Then they'll ask like, what's the point? And you know, they'll start asking more and more of those questions, and eventually they're going to get to the point where they're just going to be like, I don't feel like doing this, you know? I'll just go straight to the story or whatever.
Exactly.
They'll just go to the one.
Exactly, and
if you're still in the
I've
game,
had
just press B to
exactly.
leave. To back to...
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Like Skyrim and the other Elder Scroll games, like in particular, it's just like you do the side missions and what happens? What changes? Like it doesn't feel like anything
Yeah.
happens, anything
There's
changes. You can
absolutely
spend
no
literally
changes
hours.
to that one. Like side
You
quest
spend
wise.
hours walking from one to the others, and there's no change. They're like the worlds are so big as well that it feels like walking
There's
from one side quest to
absolutely no
another is a quest in
world
its own,
design
in
on that
itself.
one. Like the
And it's
map,
like,
everyone just looks like Skyrim, and I completely get where you're coming from, because this is a good point now that we connected up. But with Skyrim, it has no changes to the story. A lot of people get lost in the side quest, and there's a reason for it. Because like I said, how they end your quest just near another one. Well, before you end your quest, you encounter a side quest, because that's how their levels are designed. As well with their world, how they're designed. You just randomly encounter a shrine just out in the open, or you encounter a coal feeding ground just next to a major settlement, which makes no fucking sense. Like, why would you put this here? Why would you hide here, you know? But,
yeah,
anyway, looking past the world design, when people encounter, that for the quest, like, they're gonna immediately say, okay, now that I've got this quest, I'll stop the main mission and do that because it's a lower level, or it's a lot easier to do, I can level up and so forth. And then they just go from quest to quest to quest, and they completely forget the, quote, urgent need to stop this dragon that's gonna like rip the world apart, or something stupid and absurd like that, where they're like, oh, you got a 24-hour time frame, which is,
yeah,
that's absolutely bullshit. That's thrown out the window. So people don't see the urgency, they don't feel an impact to the story, because there is none. They take out that impact with the exploration for the world, the open world design that they wanted to implement into the game. And with the world not connecting well with the level design, then the only thing you've got really to say about the world is it's really big and there's a lot to do in it, which doesn't equate to quality. Quantity doesn't equate to quality, which is the point of this video. We're going to keep constantly coming back to that. That's a false equivalency. Anyway, if I was to say how you would design a map well, like what would define if your map is designed well, there's someone that's spent 100 hours or so in your game and has done everything, then they should be able to know where X is and how to get there without opening them and looking at their map. Doesn't matter how big or small it is, they should just be able to know it because they spent enough time in it, and your world is designed well enough that you can navigate without opening your map to locate things. should always be able to tell where you are and where to go. Not when you just start the game, of course, because that's the whole point why maps exist. You're wondering where you are and how to get there. But when you put in 100 hours, you shouldn't be pretty damn well, acknowledged it with the map and so forth. Like, you shouldn't just be wondering, where do I go now? And with some games, like Skyrim for instance, I'll be opening the map and I'll be like, this map is too big and like things are just all over the place in it. I don't know how to get here. Or like in the Assassin's Creed, sometimes I'll be like, I don't know where I'm going. I like this is randomly marked out here. It tells me a location, but I don't know where that is. But if I look at GTA and it's like go to Algonquin, I'll know immediately that's in the middle island. I just gotta go down there, or, because I just remember the map. I've spent long enough around there, and everything has POIs for me to remember. Like, there's enough content between one point and another, and I'm always constantly going back and forth within the map, which is exactly what you want in an open world. You want the people to go back and forth through points. You don't want this one area to be explored once and then left in the graveyard, you know? So, yeah.
Not a lot more, just that, yeah, you got to think about the design of the world and stuff, like you were talking about with Skyrim. Like, you can randomly have, like, shrines and stuff in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, okay, so why is this here? What's the point of this being here? And why is there a shrine in the middle of a forest where it's nowhere near a town or any? And then you walk like you walk like 5 minutes away, and there's a mountain, and then there's another random shrine, and like one priest, and he's not even at the shrine, and it's like, so why is this here? What was the point? And you got to think about that, because it's just so immersion breaking, and it just makes it feel weird, and like the game has no cohesion. And if it doesn't have any of that, then like your players aren't gonna find it fun.
No.
And you got to make it fun first. Like, there's no point in playing a game if it's just big. Like, why would people want to play a game that takes forever to complete when it's not even actually any good?
Exactly.
Like,
That's why
just
I left Assassin's Creed, because it just took too long. Like with this game, I hate running in a straight line forever, and that's a point that usually annoys me primarily, because I'm doing that a lot. And in Assassin's Creed, I'm spending way too much time doing side quests before missions, and they force on me through a restriction, which is a punishment. And punishments work far less than compliments incentives when we talk about saving the player from themselves. Like in Sonic, that's a incentive, but how like when you beat the level at certain times, you get like really fast, you get a point system which puts you on a leaderboard and so forth, and it's like, congrats, you beat it at this certain time, here's some points and some rings. Like, it's a simple incentive, yeah, but it's still an incentive, and that works a lot better than like you fail the mission in XCOM 2 if you don't beat it like in a certain time, because there's time limits, so people don't spend ages reverting save points and trying to fight beasts slowly and go through the level cautiously, because they want you to just delve in. And people are annoyed at that, because then that's just saying to people that want to play in a certain way, fuck you, stop playing. And people don't really take kind to fuck you for buying and playing the game. Like, people want to buy and play the game however the fuck they feel like. Like, if they do it the way you want, then you should incentivize them. Sure, that's fine. That's A-okay. That doesn't bother the people that don't want to play that way at all. That's why cheats exist as a menu, as opposed to just, like, always toggled on. It's because, like, then you have to go out of your way to toggle it on, and it usually disables achievements, because for those who actually complete the feat without cheats, they feel good because they got the achievement to the name. But those that don't, well, they don't lose anything, do they? They still complete the game and have fun.
No.
So that's
how it
and
should
that's
be
how
done. Games should be played.
Like, that's why
you don't.
Restrictions don't work as well.
Oh shit! I jumped out of that way too early.
Yeah, whenever you jump
anyway,
out, you're like,
yeah.
fucked.
yeah, like just punishing players is really bad. Like you can't punish players for playing the way they want. Like that just doesn't work. It just means people are not gonna like the game. Like you can't do that if you want people to actually play your game.
No, you can't. You don't want to treat your players like shit, like many other games, like Super Seducer did. That's why they were taken off the PlayStation Store because it's a VR, VN visual novel where this dickhead just goes try and pick up women, and he said he makes games for a bunch of versions, and he directly insulted them because they gave him negative reviews or they weren't playing his game. And they're like, oh, you fucking losers, you can't talk to women on the street, like it was somehow illegal. And, and it's insulting the people that are actually buying your game kinda isn't the right move, so it's completely
No.
understandable. It's just amazing that PlayStation ever wanted to even, like, think of making a deal with fucking PR nightmare disasters like those fuckheads. But, of course, without a doubt, they ended up getting taken from the PSN store. Like, no one wants to be a part of that disaster.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to think about how people are being treated in that situation, because if you treat people badly, then they're just not going to play your game. And
Absolutely. Stars been a front to
and you
everyone.
want people to play your game.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother discussion.
Oh yeah,
But-
one that I cycled to all the fucking time, but even though I've only played the game
But
once in
yeah,
passing.
but yeah, open world games have to think a lot about how they've designed everything and how everything flows, because
It's a
otherwise
very big
people like me,
undertaking.
yeah, and a lot of the time people like me, especially because of the side quest thing we just discussed, feel super daunted by the game because of you can do stuff and you can spend hours and hours and hours on end and feel like you've literally done nothing.
Absolutely,
And
it's very intimidating. The
That's
size.
the worst feeling. That's the worst feeling for me. Like, I want to
Yeah,
feel like I've
absolutely.
completed something.
That's exactly
It doesn't
why I
matter if
stopped
it's a
playing
little bit
Assassin's
or a
Creed
lot,
2,
but
like I said, because I was spending a lot of time doing fucking nothing. Just like why I quit Shadow of War, even though recently I've heard they're taking out loot boxes and they're going to do something to the grind, which could be slightly smaller or fuck all. Apparently they're going to intertwine some story. But there was no story connected to the missions that I was doing, so I was grinding full content. A whole nother 20 hours, which prior to then, I put in just under 20 hours before that act. And I put in another 20 hours just for that act, which most of it was just fucking grinding. So I put in 20 hours and achieved absolutely fucking nothing. So yeah, I completely understand where you're getting at here, because I was absolutely fucked off, and during the whole time I was getting pissed off more and more. I'd stop playing the game for long periods of time, only to go back and do a single part where I'd realised I didn't get anywhere, so I'd quit after doing one LP part. I'd be absolutely fucked off, and every time I would leave, I would just be thinking of fucking selling the game because I'm so fucking sick of it. But because I started the LP and I wanted to finish the LP and release a full product on my YouTube, of course, like not one that you're spending money on or anything, or is an actual product, but more like a service. But anyway, I wanted to finish it, of course, so I stuck to it, and that's the only reason I would have, because just like as you said, those people that are intimidated, they're just going to stop playing, and when they do, well, they're going to sell it, and that's not good. You want to have your money, you want to keep your money, you don't want to lose the money. That's never a fucking good thing. Refunds
yeah,
aren't
exactly,
good.
exactly.
They are for
That's
the
why I
consumer.
don't buy most open world games. I normally only play them when other I'm at other people's places, or someone else lets me borrow it or something, or I get it for free and stuff.
I
But
do, getting
otherwise,
quite
I'm
attracted
like,
to them because they take too much time, and I like to shift from game to game. I don't like to commit as much
yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
As much anymore. So I
Ditto,
completely get
ditto.
it.
And it's like you have to put heaps of hours in, because otherwise you legit feel like you've done nothing. And to make a game good, especially with open world, you have to think about it a lot. But to make a game good, you have to make it feel like every time someone plays like a half hour or an hour or something, they've completed something. It doesn't have to be something massive, but they have to feel like they've actually done something. If they complete like 10 side missions and it still feels like they got nothing and the feeling of it, you can't just have like random things happen to people. You have
Absolutely.
to actually have it
It's a lot
like
bigger undertaking that also costs a lot more, which is why I said at the beginning that like it's one that only
yeah,
AAA games could pull off. So it's the only genre
yeah,
that
exactly.
is restricted to only the AAA industry.
Yeah, because indie games could never have enough money to do it right. They could never
They have
get.
tried in the past, but none of them have done it properly. Not one.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no need for them to do it anyway.
No.
If they can get
They
out
build
a
the
good
game
game.
again around one mechanic and they just do that well. But that's a whole nother discussion, which someone's already done for me. But
Yeah, you can get out an entirely good game without doing that. Like, but if you're specifically trying to make an open world game, then you got to have enough money behind you and enough resources to make it actually fun and playable and feel like people are doing something rather than just,
yeah, because the
like
game
we
does
said,
need to feel
just
like it's
doing.
alive.
Yeah, exactly. We have to feel like
Because the point of a
it's actually
sandbox,
doing something.
yeah, the point of a sandbox is to provide you with enough tools and enough gear that you just can make your own fun. But it also needs to be fun enough that just being in said world is fun on its own. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Agree.
which a lot of people are gonna hate on me for saying it, but which is why I personally don't like Minecraft because
Yeah,
being in the
Minecraft
world
isn't much of
itself.
an open world, but the reason why I dislike that, and it is getting onto the topic, I'll just avoid you from making a controversy, but reason why I don't like games like Minecraft is while they say make your own fun, and they are a big open sandbox, they're not the same thing as an open world for, even though they got a big map and so forth. The reason is they make a level, right, a world, that is big and open like the definition of open world, which means it can be classified as one. But the reason why it isn't is there's no game design. There's none of it. They
Yeah,
give you a bunch of tools and they're like, you do everything. So practically nothing will happen there. There's no reason for anything being. Instance for Minecraft, it is all randomly generated through RNG, random number generation. If anyone doesn't know, if because they may not have watched my previous videos, but that just means that they're not even designing the actual worlds. They're always random. Everyone's going to get a different experience, which appeals to some people. I get that. You know, as long as it's still got some way of being linear at the same time as not being linear, kind of like I love that structure. Like how in the Nemesis system, no one's going to get the same story with the same orc. You know, which is really interesting.
yeah,
It makes it feel like a personal tale between you and the orc. But the thing is, it's still always gonna happen. You know, there's always still gonna be like an encounter, or you know, there's always a couple set things that are always bound to happen, and like you can explore with it, but like there's still some kind of structure, some kind of game design for it happening, for it being and existing. But Minecraft games like that, you know, Sea of Thieves, it's kind of just like, well, it's there, have fun. You
yeah,
design the game, you know, you do it. I mean, and I just see that, and I'm like, isn't it your job to design the game, not mine? I'm just here to play and have fun
yeah,
with it.
yeah. I don't
You're gonna
mind
tell
when
me
they
to do
add
your job?
things in there for you to be able to design levels and stuff
Yeah, yeah,
like with
creation
Halo's
tools.
with like Halo's Forge and stuff.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really don't
Or
mind
the
when you do
snap
that.
method too.
And
I love that shit. Yeah.
yes, it can be a certain amount of fun to just sit there and play around with doing that kind of stuff. But there still has to be some sort of game behind it. It
Exactly.
can't just be create your own world. Then it's a sim.
Mm.
I'm not. If I wanted to play a sim like that, I'd buy a.
Still has game design and reasonable being. Because how I just talked about how it has story enveloped in a semi, or as they call it, bilinear style, which means it is linear, but it's one that changes in, like, the line isn't directly straight, it has fluctuations like Mass Effect or so forth, you know. So like, for instance, at a certain
Yeah.
point you'll be able to make a choice, so you can go off the beaten path a bit with X, where the Sims still has an ultimate goal. Like, you can still be building and designing things. There are a lot that's done to RNG, but there's always going to be specific certain things that happen, you know, that you'll always encounter at
Yeah.
one point or another. And there's always going to be options that you can do and undertake for some sort of input from the game and so forth. It's not just like you building stuff or whatever, you know. Like, there are events, like, they're not related to a story per se in some of the games, but there are events that happen, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, open world games have to think about these events too, and it's like, if you're just running around from one corner of the map to the other corner of the map, and you don't see any of these events, then what the hell's the point? Like, you can't just run from one corner to the other. That would make for an extremely boring game.
It's very vague as well, the assumption that, like, you know, the size of the map equals content, you know. Like, it's so vague to summarize an entire game from purely the size of the world. Like, I've done a lot of videos where I judge things purely on monetization and so forth, but I want to point out now that I'm neither a games critic or a games journalist. So, like, they aren't official reviews, even the ones that are actual labeled as review videos in the title. They're still not reviews, and, you know, even on those review titles, I don't just look at the single aspect. But, like, that single aspect may be a deal breaker for some, but it's not an accurate way to represent or encompass the entire game, you know?
Yeah.
But
Just
anyway,
with reviews as well, they
Yeah,
can really
just-
annoy me, because some like games, like, simply just because they're a fighter, get bad reviews, and it's like,
so
that's
let's try
what it
and
is.
close up here and stay on topic, because we're getting a bit lengthy here. Any final statements?
Not really. I think we sort of covered most of it. Like, open world games have to be, like, fun and actually playable and not feel too daunting, and, like, try and reduce the amount of feelings of daunt people get from seeing how big it is, by, like, actually making lots of encounters and reasons for doing side missions and even actual missions. Like, sometimes open world games focus so much on how it looks and how big it is that they forget that there's an actual game to go along with it.
Exactly.
And it's like, you have to focus on how fun the missions are to do, and how well that fits in with the world and all that kind of stuff. Like, especially like with Skyrim, you're stopping one dragon for the main story, right? But you can literally, like, go for a 5-hour run, and yes, sometimes it can take that long, and meet another random dragon. And it's like, so what the hell is the point in doing like 6 of them?
Yeah, and that is another huge complaint with that game. But anyway, just to wrap this up, size doesn't equate to content, as I said. That's a false equivalency to say that quantity is equals to quality. It's just not a thing, as I said. So yeah, that's a video.